Hey everybody, thank you for joining me on the At Home with Melissa channel. I have two updates in the critter room for you today, and I know you can see me filming, and I apologize for that. The glare is just impossible. But this right here, what you're looking at, is the wild bluegill tank. And yeah, for those of you who know bluegill, they're a panfish that live here in Pennsylvania. They also probably live throughout this part of the United States. And they are really neat, really pretty. I've grown up with them. I used to fish them when I was a child. And they don't have a whole lot of flavor if you fish for them. And that's actually one of the things people like about them, because it takes on the flavor of your seasonings. And sorry for saying that, but it's a fact. These guys, though, are avoiding predation, avoiding being fished, avoiding being eaten. This is a 75-gallon tank. I'm backing up so you can get a better view. 75-gallon tank. And there on the left, you can see I have some, I don't know if it's pothos, but I also have some philodendron growing. And that helps suck some of the nutrients, some of the nitrates out of the water so that the fish don't get poisoned. And on the right, I have stuck into the, let's see if we can get this so that the glare's not so obvious. There we go. That, planted in the substrate and growing up through the grate, which holds it steady and holds it upright, is just that lucky bamboo that you get. You can buy it at Lowe's and other places, and I had a vase of it for years, and I planted it in the substrate because bluegill, when they're small like this, they grow up to 13 inches long, but when they're little like this, they're just babies, ranging in this tank from about 1.5 inches to 2.5, 3 inches in length. And they're really neat. They're pretty. They've got great patterning. When they're babies like this, they school together, safety in numbers in the wild. And here in the tank, you can tell that they're all really well adjusted. I mean, they're not schooling tightly. I'm here with the camera. They don't even feel threatened. I just fed them some freeze-dried bloodworms, and they chowed on that. Anytime I put duckweed on top of the tank, it's gone very quickly. They like earthworms. I mean, these guys are opportunistic eaters. They're omnivores. They'll eat anything you throw at them, which is nice when you have them in a tank like this. But being that they will get so large, at adulthood, I'll only have one, possibly two in this tank. The rest will have to go into larger tanks and things. Also, when they mature, they get to the point where they can be territorial, and they don't school at adulthood, I don't think, or at least not, well, they don't school tightly like this, and they don't get along as well. And during a spawn, for example, they become really, really territorial, and, you know, that's what I was thinking of when I said about this. They become really territorial, really aggressive. They attack anything that comes into their territory. So I'm going to try to get a close-up view of one of these fellas so that you can see the patterning. Unfortunately, as I'm looking at the camera, every time I get close to somebody, you can't really see because of the glares and things. You can't really see. They have absolutely exquisite patterning, I think. They're just beautiful. They've got the black spot, well, blue-black spot on their gills that gives them their name, the bluegill. And the males, when they become more mature, the male spots will be bigger than those of the females. Let's catch you. Will be larger than those of the females. And that's how you tell the sexes apart, or at least that's one way. And hello, little fella. Look at them up there. More to eat, more to eat. But they have kind of the striping that goes vertically, that you see among a lot of freshwater fish. There, you got a good glimpse of it there. The striping kind of helps them to blend in under the water. And their color is mostly a green. you can see little bits of blue, especially when they're small. You can see a lot of blue in their scales, and you just keep getting little glimpses here. I'm sorry for the poor camera work. I'm trying to get you a really good view of the way these fellas look, the way their patterning looks and things like that, because it's just beautiful. You can see their scales really well. They've got the stripes, and they're just really neat to watch. Let's back up and give you a full view of the tank again. And watching them play together is kind of neat. And of course, they're starting to sort of exhibit some more mature behaviors. We have one in particular, one of these fish is a little bit more aggressive than the rest, and he's going to be, you can tell already, he's going to be the tank master, but they're just babies. Now, if you want to know how it is, they've been with me for a few weeks, and they're doing fine. They're all eating well. I see no signs of, and this is lucky in a freshwater fish. Something with freshwater fish you have to be careful of is if you're preparing it as a food. Sorry to say, as we're talking of aquariums, and but they are a panfish, so I'm kind of talking about aquariums and fishing at the same time. But with freshwater fish, what you have to be careful of is that a lot of them carry parasites. I see no evidence on any of these little guys of parasitic infection or of any kind of fungus or bacterial infections. They all seem insanely healthy, which makes me really happy. And I've been watching them a couple weeks. I still see no evidence of any problems. So hopefully that remains the case. And when you cook freshwater fish, you need to make sure to really cook it well because of the parasites, or to freeze the meat and then thaw it out later to kill any parasites that are in there. But like I said, these guys seem happy and healthy, and they're going to have hopefully long, happy, healthy lives. Now, you hear people talk a lot about wild-caught fish and putting them in an aquarium and how to do it and how difficult it is and how they don't survive. Well, knock on wood, I've had really good success. And I think part of the reason for that is that I don't try to mimic their natural water. I don't. I just think that puts you in a position where you're shocking and re-shocking the fish as you're adjusting the pH and things constantly. So what I do is when I'm going out to wild catch fish, I get a very large container, usually a 16-gallon tote or a big cooler, and since I'm catching small ones, I use minnow traps. I bait them with things like a little bit of canned tuna that I wrap in an old rag and tie off, or leftover cat food, canned cat food. You know how cats are. They eat part of it and then the rest they leave on their plate and they won't go back to it. Or at least that's how mine are. I have one now, but that's how mine have always been. And so I feed the cat, and when she's done eating, I gather up the remainder of the canned cat food and I wrap it in an old rag and I put that in the middle of the minnow trap to use as bait. Well, these guys are schooling, and I find an area that's got a lot of the fish that I want and set out the minnow traps, and a couple hours later, there you go. Actually, I don't usually have the patience. I get excited and want to see what's going on, so they're not in the water nearly an hour for me most of the time. But I've got then, as the minnow traps are in the water, right before I take them out, I fill the container I've brought, whether it's a tote or a cooler, with water from the lake or river they come from. And then I put them into the container. I bring the container home. I add an air pump filter to it. This is the one that was in their container. It's a sponge filter that's supposed to be sufficient for up to a 100-gallon tank. And I drop that in the container, and that filters pollutants out and things like that, keeps them going. And gradually I add a cup to a quart of water at a time from my spigot here at the house, my faucet. I, of course, dechlorinate the water and things, but I add my water, a cup to a quart at a time, to this other container. And of course, I'm taking out some of the lake water. I'm adding some of my water. I'll add it, I'll go do something. A few hours later, I'll come back. Maybe I'll add another cup or two of water, and I'll go do things. And I'll keep doing that, gradually replacing the wild water. I know that's not what it's called, but the wild water with my water until it's all my water. And then when I put them into a tank, well, it's probably almost all my water at that point. And when I put them into a tank, that completes it, and it's all regular tank water that I use for my fish. At that point, with very little stress, they've gradually, ever so gradually, acclimated to my water, and I've had 0 casualties. 0. No fish have passed away. None of them have died. I've lost no one. And that's not just for this tank this time. I've done this before, and I never lost any of them either. So apparently it's a system that works. And then you don't have to be fiddling with it all the time, worrying about stressing your animals because you're adjusting their pH up and down all the time. They're good, they're acclimated, and they're happy. And so that's what I did with these guys, and here they are. And like I said, they're really easy to feed. And in the future, when they get bigger, you'll probably be able to see a giant tank setup, which I don't think will be, unless I make one, it's not going to be an aquarium thing. It'll probably be a tank that you really can't see through the sides of, but that'll be where they live when they're older, all except for 1 or 2 lucky buggers that get to be stared at all the time. So I've got some hair grass here in the back. I've got some pebbles because I want it to be similar to what they would have in the wild. And what they usually have is like kind of a sandy bottom. So I've got the sand there and some stones, and I just added some glass beads because I had them and I wanted it to shine. And the bamboo I had thought of making this something that I think is really cool, and really wish that teachers would pick up on this and do it. I was going to set up, and I still am going to set up probably, an aquaponic system with these fellas. But my idea was that this was going to be all native aquatic animals, and I'm going with a single species probably, bluegill. And I was going to put only native plants in the tank, native to my area, and then the aquaponic system was going to be edible plants that you find in the wild around here. And I was going to do that, and I was going to do a video on it that basically said, okay, this is how you set up the aquaponic system, and I might still do a video on that in the future. But with this tank in particular, I was going to, and I'm just too busy to do it right now, too many things going on. I'm reinforcing my first floor so that it doesn't collapse under the weight of all these fish tanks. But so I'm doing that while still setting up more tanks and things. And I was going to do a demonstration. Okay, this is how you set up the aquaponic system in the fish tank. And notice we have all these native things. And for any kind of educator, that would be great in the classroom to have. You could do it on a small scale with like a 10-gallon tank. Just to have as a demonstration thing, something, a display that the kids could interact with, they could watch it, you could use it to teach things about it's like growing your food locally and sourcing things. You could teach about the native plants and animals in your area, and you would have right there examples to show of them. You could teach your students how to set up an aquarium. You could teach them how to set up an aquaponic system. They'd learn basic plumbing skills. And you could also extrapolate from this and use it to talk about global climate change, in that they're saying now that in the future, one of the ways people might get their food is the population increases and the climate's changing, and that's putting more stress on the environment and on the land and on the waters, and making it more difficult to produce enough food for people to eat and to sustain the human population, which is ever expanding and more rapidly as we go on. they're saying that, well, aquaponics would be a great way to do it. You have, of course, it would be on a much larger scale than this, have very large tanks full of some sort of edible fish, and the fish and the plants interact in a way that you can grow your food plants and the meat in the form of these fish in an aquaponic system at your home. It takes up no more land than your home, and you can do it in your basement, you can do it in your backyard, depending on your climate and what your resources are to keep them at the proper temperatures and things. So you can really, and I mean, how neat would that be for every classroom around to kind of have a nifty little aquarium in it with beautiful plants growing up above, and being able to use that as a visual aid for a lot of your different lessons that you're teaching your students. I think that'd be really cool. So that's what I was going to do, but the time was right to get the fry, to get the little baby fish here, and so I wanted to do that, and they needed their home, and it needed to be set up, and I have so many other things going on right now that I really couldn't set up a system like that. But I wanted to tell you guys about it in case you know an educator who might be interested in doing that, because I just think it would be neat for folks to do it, for that to be something that becomes commonplace in the classroom, because it is so useful in so many different ways for the students. And I also wanted to show you this tape because it's really spiffy and I'm really pleased with it. And I hope you guys like it too. And I hope that some of the facts that I shared and some of the information I shared about the different things that are going on here and that I'm doing with this tank were helpful to you. And before I let you go, I want to show you one more thing. I have another update, and this one is a cherry red shrimp tank right next door to the fish. So they can look at the shrimp and say, if only I could get there. But I've got it just filled with moss balls and Java moss. I do have a plant in the back there, but you can see the little red shrimp. Little red specks on everything. And the white specks on everything, what looks white on the camera, those are actually green specks. That was me being stupid. I was thinking about something else, and a free sample of seaweed, little dried seaweed, came with the shrimp, and to feed them. And I meant to just sprinkle some on, was thinking about something else. That is an unhealthy moss ball. I'm hoping it perks up. The rest look fine. But anyway, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I dumped the entire package in. So the flecks you see are actually shredded seaweed, and I'm probably going to have to go in and remove it because there's way too much there. But until it starts being a problem, or at least for now, I'm going to let it be. And so this is a species-only red cherry shrimp aquarium sponge filter that's actually for a much larger aquarium, not for any reason other than that's what I had at hand. And so they've got that bubbling away, filtering their water, providing oxygen. They've got all their moss that they can climb on and hide under and pick through, and they all seem really happy and well adjusted. They just came yesterday. They were a mystery package, and I want to thank whoever it was. Somebody made a mystery package for me, bought me the cherry shrimp. I found them. I found the package on my doorstep and brought it in, and it was these little guys, these sweet little fellas. And I brought them in, and I have no idea. Well, I have ideas, but I really don't know for sure who bought them. It wasn't me. I can only think of 3 people, but whoever you are, because everyone of the 3 that I've talked to 2 out of 3, and they both denied being the one who bought them. True or not, one of those 3 had to be who bought these guys. And whoever you are, I thank you. They are so sweet, and I really love them, and they seem really happy in their new house, and I hope that they live long, happy lives and make many, many babies. So that's that tank. And that concludes this episode, too, of At Home with Melissa. We've got the new bluegill and the new cherry shrimp. And I wanted you to get to say hi to everybody. And I wanted to get to say hi to you. I feel like it's been forever. I know it hasn't, but it feels like it. So You guys just hang tight. I'm still working on the basement, and hopefully within the next couple of days I'll have another big tank set up for you. And in the meantime, just enjoy everything you do. And thanks again for joining me. You know, you can always check in At Home with Melissa channel. You can subscribe if you want to get notified of any updates if you find this stuff interesting and think you might like to see more of it. And just enjoy every moment of your day and have a great time between now and the next time that we're together. And thanks again for stopping by. Bye-bye.